appreciate the thoughts and all that. I'll update you guys as best as I can.
Lou's mother is still in sick.
Yeah, so I just want to give a special shout out before we lose anything to my friends, the Barrettses, our members, our friends here.
Hi, Dan.
Beloved to me. Great to see you guys.
Hi, Dan.
It's just wonderful. I hope Florida's still treating you well, but we'll be happy to get you back up here. So everybody, you'll forgive me for the time being. I'm going to mute everybody other than the Cantor and I. And I'm going to make sure our streaming is going as it should be, which I think it is. And I think we're all set. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm going to begin by inviting up our dear friend. Where is she? Linda Guessford. Gotta find Linda. And we're going to put Linda right on here. And Linda, we're going to ask you to unmute. All right, 1 second. Let me ask you to do that. Ask to unmute. Try that. There you go. And for anybody who wants to follow along, we're on page 120 in our prayer books, page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu lichad nikneh shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Linda, thank you so much. Here, pull the camera up so we can see your face. Well, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I know.
No, I know. It's tricky. It's tricky. There needs to be like a Shabbos candle Zoom camera, especially me. But you did beautifully, Linda. So thank you for doing that. And Shabbat
Thank you. You're
Shalom
welcome.
to you.
Anytime.
All right. And okay. Was I muted that whole time?
You were muted, but now we can hear you.
Did I say anything profound? That's the real question. All right, Candelorian, let's get ourselves started with the Yedid Nefesh, page 128.
Yedid Nefesh Av-Rachman, Yedid Nefesh Av-Rachman, Yeshochav-Decha, El-Retzonecha, Yeshochav-Decha,
Now we'll turn to page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat. The very top of the page, L'chu Neranena.
L'chu Neranena l'Adonai, Nari'a letzor Yisheinu, Nekadma fanav betoda, Bizmirot Nari'a lo, Nekadma fanav betoda, Bizmirot Nari'a lo.
And now we turn to page 131, Shiru Ladonai.
Shir
now to page 132, or Zaru at the very bottom of the page. Turn now to page 134, very top, Zamru Ladonai. On page 135, Romamu, the fourth paragraph in Hebrew in the middle of the page. We'll turn now to Lachado D on page 138. And a reminder, we're going to do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs.
Sorry. Shamor mezachor bedibor echad Kishmianu el hamnuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shemu tiferet v'tchila Lekhat odi
Turn now to page 140 at the very top. Now to page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, וילמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, מחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם על מעמיה יתמרח, יתברך וישבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמרם בעלמה, ויאמרו amen.
Turn now to page 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Marechu et Adonai, Amen.
Read together on the bottom of page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב הרבים, אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכנו וקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך, לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו, באורך ימינו, ובהם נגד יומם ולילה. מאהבתך, אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
And on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 58. Turn now to the top of page 161.
And there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Hashkileinu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkileinu, leshalom. Le'ha'amiteinu, shomreinu le'chaim. Ufros aleinu, sukat shlomecha. Hashkileinu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkileinu, leshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm.
Turn now to the top of page 162.
Shamru b'nei Yisrael Hashabbat, la'asot et Hashabbat לדורותם בריתותם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתותם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתותם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתותם. וביום השביעי שבר לי נפש, שבר לי נפש, שבת לי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתותם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתותם.
In a moment, Cantor Lauren will help us to begin the Amidah, which begins on page 164. And as always, we'll then continue silently. We'll take a few moments, and again, to use this time in the way that feels most appropriate for you. So Cantor Lauren, if you wouldn't mind getting us started, again, page 164, and then continuing silently.
Adonai sevat tiftach ufi hadi tfilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare Shalom Rab Israel Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab Israel Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Adon Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Ki Adon Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rab Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Our thoughts and our hearts and our minds turn to those that we love who are in need of healing. And as we turn to page 371 for the Mishnah Berach, I'll read a list of those that we're thinking of tonight. But if you have additional names and you feel comfortable to share them, you're welcome to add them to the chat or simply to hold them in your hearts as we consider and remember those most close to our community this evening. Estella Gass, Sylvia Orn, Yerachmiel Ben Hinda, Paloma Chauhan, Samuel Moskowitz, Audrey Lubo, Chaim Leib, Andrew Edelman, Robert Posner, Joyce Weinberg, Rick Gold, Stu Pollack, Jane London, Catherine Guarino, Emunah Chava, Sandra Farman, Raina Walsh, Deirdre Klein, Stephanie Skitt, Judy Stern, Miriam Cornfield, Roz Brody, Chana Ruth Batsara, Marlise Silverberg, Susan Spruce, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva Bat Sarah, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Idol Basha Bat Yitzchak, Tzvi Menachem Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Amy and Gavin Tucker, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Neil Elliott and Eileen Rosen, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Ben Sion Ben Moshe, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kossoff, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klopman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sivya, Peretz Ben Yehuda, and Leah Bat Naomi. And of course, all of those that have been mentioned in the chat as well. And we'll turn to Cantor Lauren, who will lead us in the Mishnah Berach on page 371. Lauren, we'll give you a little break from the spotlight. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So I will just say at the outset that for those that don't know, spend most of this week with Lou and Lou's mom, who's unfortunately facing some very serious health challenges. And so I will be very frank, I'm not as prepared for tonight as I would normally be. And, they tell you actually in school, and I've been told, don't say that, right? Act as if everything's fine, you don't have to give people. For Cantor Lauren and for her wonderful boyfriend, Aaron, who are both students learning, if there's one thing that I teach you, ignore that advice, okay? One of the most, I think, biggest mistakes that we've ever made in the rabbin and the Cantorate and Jewish leadership in general is to identify ourselves in any way with stoicism. You know, Jews are not stoics, right? We are emotional people. We share that emotion and we grow from it. So I'm not uncomfortable, especially with this congregation, to tell you where I'm at tonight. But I'm going to try my best to convey, I think, some thoughts and feelings that I'm having tonight, because beyond whatever's happening to us as a family, we also, as a human family, over the next several weeks, depending on your congregation, where you are in the world, and when the lockdown began, but this is an anniversary of sorts. This is the time in which most congregations actually had already shut down. As it turns out, I don't know exactly what we were thinking, but we waited one more week. So technically next week is the first service in which we went completely virtual. And so I went back as a matter of course, and I watched the services basically from this Shabbat weekend, from the 13th and the 12th, and from next weekend, the last one being where there's still people in the room, and then where we went to where it was just me. And so, you know, there are a lot of emotions that are sort of swirling in that way, for sure. And then, of course, I was in the city for really, it was the first time in probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, maybe longer, 10 months. I was there once during the lockdown for a funeral, and that was it. So that was a rather shocking kind of experience for a born and bred New Yorker to go back home and to see what the city is like these days. And of course, this makes a person contemplate, you know, what has the last year been to all of us? How are we processing this? How are we acknowledging it? And I think next week we will do something a little bit more formal. But tonight I wanted to think about it in context of this week's Torah portion, and something actually that we learned from really the first word that's rather instructive about how we have persevered over the last year, and also about some of our challenges that we still are facing. So this weekend's portion, double portion that ends the book of Exodus, begins with the words Vayakel. Vayakel may not sound like such a common word, but if I said the word Kehillah to you, some of you may perk your ears up, may sound more familiar. Vayakel basically is a way of saying that after the experience of the golden calf, Moses decides the first thing that needs to happen is to get everybody together, right? To call everybody. Vayakel is basically the verb form of creating a kehillah, which in our tradition is understood to be a gathering, a sacred gathering, right? Oftentimes synagogue communities are referred to as kehillat so-and-so. Okay, this word kehillah is very core to who we are, and vayakel is an idea. It's the idea that when we are faced, especially in the aftermath of a tragedy, and in particular in the moments after that tragedy, it doesn't have to be seconds, right? It can be weeks, it can be months, it can be even sometimes years. But the question of what is our response? So the story of the golden calf, as it ends last week's portion, the story could have ended there. The Torah could have been 2.5 books long. None of us could exist. And yet the story continues on. But that story only continues when everybody is gathered together to contemplate how it is that we're going to move forward. How are we going to deal with what's taken place? And how are we going to ultimately move forward? This idea of Vayakel becomes actually the basis for all public Torah readings, of something that is later described in the Torah as a continuation of this idea of gathering the people together periodically, all of them, everybody, from the poorest to the richest, from the youngest to the oldest, men and women, everybody all together. Because ultimately speaking, a response to the kind of tragedy that our ancestors experienced with the golden calf, and the kind of tragedy that we as human beings have experienced over the last year as a result of the pandemic, are not the kinds of things that you can simply, quote unquote, move on from. There is a very important step in between taking those next steps forward. And that is ultimately the idea of trying to gather people together in a sacred kind of relationship, in a sacred convening, as it were. So, of course, the challenge of this is that for our ancestors, it made perfect sense, right? To get everybody all together was no great hurdle. For us, on the other hand, a year ago, it was the greatest of hurdles. It was the singular hurdle, right? How do we gather back together? How do we maintain a sense of kehillah, a sense of that kind of sacred connection to each other when we can't be here? As I said, I watched the video of the service when people were still in the room, and I watched the video of the service where I was by myself. The difference is palpable. Okay, the difference is palpable. There's even across the wire, there's an energy missing. There's something missing from that element. And I think in those first few days, those first few weeks where we weren't able to really have any means, right? We weren't doing Zoom at that point. It was very much everybody in their home and me here, and there was no connection. So to be in this place, while I know all of us are, champing at the bit to be back together in person, to really think about what is the last 12 months of our community in particular, what does this temple community look like over the last 12 years? And while so many things have been taken away from us, so many things made that much more challenging, I think actually the sense of Kehillah has grown. If anything, it's actually grown exponentially. Now, that's not to say that there's a critique of what happened before, or perhaps this is some temporal abnormality that once we're back in person, certain things will change and perhaps change for the worse. I don't believe that. I believe actually that our story is very much like the story of our ancestors in the immediate aftermath of the golden calf. It's not to say that there weren't challenges. There sure are. Come to Torah study for the next 3 books of the Torah, and we will talk about it probably every week. But that moment in which there was a reminder that this sense of Kehillah is not about physical proximity at all. It wasn't about that. The calling that Moses is doing at the beginning of this portion is not about bodies. It's not about people showing up in that way. It's a sacred kind of calling. It's a calling that comes only in these kinds of moments where we have to rise beyond the simple. We have to get to an elevated level. We have to consider our work of building community as a sacred task. And as I said, I'm extremely proud of what this congregation has done over the last 12 months. But I know that we still have a long way to go. We have many things that we need to do, certainly as our community in Sag Harbor, but I think the community of humanity. And that right now we are starting to see a little bit more of this hope, of this sort of gathering back together again. And that's where the piece, as I said, of going to the city was really quite profound. Because in my last memory, the streets were empty. You could drive from 96th and 5th Avenue all the way down in a matter of minutes without seeing another car. When I was back on the streets this week, I saw people as if, yes, masked, yes, distanced, but New York, the lifeblood of it is there, right? The same is true of all of these places all over the world in which we are struggling and yet overcoming. But I think that ultimately speaking, the most meaningful kind of relationship that we can have is the one that really is being called for in our Torah portion this week, and that we have really called for over the last year in this community over the last 12 months, which is Vayakel. Find a way to make sure that no matter what has happened, no matter what barriers may exist, that we never lose that sense of Kehillah. And if anything, as I said, that we continue to grow it in the way that we have grown it over the last 12 months. I'm extremely proud to be the rabbi of this congregation. I was before COVID. It's not about that. It's just that I think when these moments happen, all of the pretense goes away, right? All of the flash, all of the stuff that really doesn't matter. What really comes down to is who are we? What are we about? And I think that, as I said, that this congregation is very much the embodiment of a Kehillah. And I thank you for being who you are. I thank you for being part of this community. And I hope and pray that that the last year will have changed us all really in many ways for the better. That we will see the common humanity that we share, and that we will continue to reach out to each other and to care for each other the way that we have over the last 12 months when we do eventually come back to being in person and to having all of our regular things back. I think there is really something special that we have witnessed together. So I apologize if tonight was a little more rambling than normal and a little bit light on the Torah, but I hope my sharing where I'm at is meaningful to all of you. And next week we will more formally recognize the year that's passed in that way, and certainly the loss that's occurred. So with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and I'm going to invite us all to turn to page 586 at the very bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabech. Aleinu L'Shabech L'Adon HaKol, L'Tehet Gedula L'Yotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoye Ha'aratzot, Velo Samanu Kemishbechot Adama, Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem, Vegor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam, Vanachnu Korim, Umishtachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're now on page 591. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. I'll now invite those who are in mourning and those observing yard sites to stand in body or spirit as you so choose, as we first remember those who have passed in recent months. Miles Ambrose, Fred Eber, Nancy Fisher, Edwin Friedman, Lucy Gladstone, Lois Herr, Phyllis Katz, Madge Judith Parcher, Steve Popkin, Vera Shaps, Virginia Tizer, Marjorie Weinberg Berman, Ann Weiss, and Danielle Lisa Riggs. We also marked the yard sites that occurred during the last week for Beatrice Aaron, Philip Chester, Arthur Cohn, Rose Decker, Harry Fleischer, Molly Fleischer, Herda Cohn, Nettie Levin, Shirley Moskowitz, Kiki Riskin, Ted Ronick, Seidel Saltzman, Samuel Sanborn, Diane Sevenak, and Leonard Barretts. And if you have names of anyone else for whom you are saying Kaddish this evening that we didn't mention, if you would like and feel comfortable, you certainly can add them to our chat or just to remember your loved ones in your heart, as the mourners will join me on page 598 for the Mourners Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Okay, if you're still standing at home, you can be seated. Still haven't quite managed the whole sitting down with the Zoom camera thing, but I'm doing my best. So one other apology, which is that I actually don't know who's supposed to do our announcements tonight other than myself. So is anybody on the docket? And if not, I've got them, but I don't want to take anybody away from the experience. Anybody? Ron, any takers? Here, let me help. Howard? Howard. Oh, and I was going to leave you out. I feel terrible. No, I couldn't do that. Howard, just unmute yourself. That's all.
Unmute me.
There you are.
Okay, so
my buddy Howard.
Everybody.
Shabbos.
I'm not always here Friday night because I'm a Shabbos morning davener, but I'm happy to be with everybody. This is a lovely gathering. So good Shabbos again. Tomorrow morning we have services at 10 o'clock. We will stream and look forward to daven with the rabbi. So you can join us on our website, either through YouTube, Facebook, etc. And after services, we have the Torah study at 12 o'clock. And that's quite a treat for those who enjoy studying Torah, the Parsha of the week, and a lot of involved nice intellectual discussion. The annual Women's Seder, sponsored by the Women's Rosh Chodesh Group, is on Zoom this Sunday at 2 p.m. So if you have any more interest, please contact Shelley Lichtenstein for details. Shelley is with us tonight as well. Also this Sunday at 11 a.m., you are invited to a virtual musical tour of Jerusalem. Please check our website calendar for the link. During the week, Midah Mitzvah is on Monday at 11:30. Our Hebrew school is scheduled for 4 p.m. and the Social Justice Committee will meet virtually at 5 o'clock. It will then present an important panel discussion on the film 13 at 7 p.m. You can view the film on Netflix anytime prior to that discussion. So that's again 7 o'clock on Monday, and preceded by a viewing of the movie 13 on Netflix. On Tuesday at 5 p.m., there is another schmooze, a chat with Myra and Shelley. And this is a nice opportunity to kibitz or check in with temple friends virtually for an informal chat. The rabbi's class on Heschel and the prophets is on Wednesday at 12 noon. And also on Wednesday, the B'nai Mitzvah classes meet at 4 p.m. That's part of the Hebrew school. Again, at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, we are privileged to present a virtual tour of the newly renovated Artists' Residence and Creative Center in the heart of Sag Harbor. This is known as the church. This is a building that was formerly a church on Madison Street. Many of you probably have passed it. It's right near El Cappuccino. Immediately following will be a Q&A with the founders of this facility, well-known artist Eric Fischel and April Gornick. This is a special event you won't want to miss. That is also can be found on our website. Another inspiring tour of the Museum of the Jewish People at Bet Hatfuso in Tel Aviv will be on Thursday at 4 p.m. This is in honor of Women's History Week. The tour includes a look at the wonderful women's exhibition, their Wonder Women's Exhibition, featuring Jewish women who have made significant contributions throughout our history. By now you have received your invitations for our community Passover Seder, done by Zoom, hosted by the Rabbi and Lou Geffen. This will take place on Sunday night, March 26th at 6 p.m. This is, by the way, the second Seder. Our first family Seder starts Saturday night before. We welcome all members, families, and friends to participate. And in celebration of Pesach, we are continuing our pandemic tradition of holiday gift bags. All members are invited to come for their gift bag on Sunday, March 21st. At the temple parking lot between 1:30 and 3 o'clock. And we're fortunate that the board has been generous in giving our congregation some nice gifts. Let's see. Look for details of all of our programs on our events at our weekly blast and our website calendar as well. If you're not on our mailing list, please contact the office and make sure Eileen puts you on that. We also welcome you to join our after service tonight for a virtual Oneg Shabbat. And with that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos, Howard.
You.
That's great. I can tell you for a fact, right? Poor Howard got the full page. My servant.
All right, what the hell?
You did great.
Thank you.
You did great. Thank you. And Saturday morning, come see Howard. He's a big part of it for sure.
All daven Shabbos morning.
Exactly. All right, Howard. Thank you very much for that. You can
unfortunately,
relax.
I can't give you an aliyah, but when we open up, anyone comes is guaranteed an aliyah.
Guaranteed.
So
Guaranteed.
Look forward to that time.
We'll have 280 aliyahs back to back. It'll be great. It'll be great. All right. Thanks, Howard.
All right.
Good Shabbos. All right. Let's put you back there. Let's get to lower it up with me. And just to emphasize one of the things, the program on Wednesday night with April Gornick and Eric Fischel, that's really something amazing. And for those of you that haven't been in Sag Harbor in a while, what they have worked on and created it's amazing. It's truly amazing. And nobody basically has been able to see the inside of it really. So we're getting a virtual tour of it, and April and Eric are going to talk about it. It's amazing. And we, as you know, again, a big part of Sag Harbor's identity, we want to support and be connected to the other pillars of Sag Harbor's cultural identity as well. So this is a great thing to show up for. Again, it's Wednesday night. But anyway, just wanted to make sure to emphasize that. Cantor Lauren, you got a good closing song for us tonight before we do Kiddush?
Yes. Oh, say shalom nimravam, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oh, say shalom nimravam, hu yaseh shalom
invite you at home if you have a Kiddush cup handy, wine, grape juice. We're on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitchenu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'ratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh Zecher litziat Mitzrayim, ki v'hanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol habim, ve'shabat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. Okay, L'chaim, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We'll let everybody unmute, and we'll wish everybody who's watching on the stream a